So I made a video where I used the phrase along the lines of something like, you're going to be around yourself the most out of any other person, probably. So it was like something around along those lines. So I also said going into that was another video. So here we are. Now, it was in the context of improving yourself. So what I went is I thought about it for a little bit and I got some sort of general framework, and now I'm here. The general framework I was looking at was like, so why would I say something along the lines of, you're going to be around yourself the most in an improvement scenario, right? So in an improvement topic, right? So it was like, okay, so this has something to do with improvement. What does that mean? It means that you are going to be, around yourself a lot. So if you don't know yourself, then that's probably going to be a problem because it's dangerous to live around strangers. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that living around someone that you know is any safer. It's just that you know if they're safe or not. And you don't know that with strangers. So, if you're in an unsafe environment, it's better for you to go out where, the odds are 50-50 rather than 100% you're going to be in danger kind of thing. But if you're in a safe environment, I don't even know if 50-50 is the right number, but we'll say so for now. And if you're in a safe environment, it's better for you to, you know, probably stay there than go out because it's way easier to break something that isn't broken when you try to rebuild it afterwards. It's one of the problems with trying to restructure society is then you're going to have to hit all of the problems that every other society has already faced. So you're starting behind the game. That aside, the general idea that I was going with was something along the lines of, if you're gonna be around yourself a lot, you probably should treat yourself better, right? So here's a general experiment I'll give you, okay? If I told you to treat yourself how you would treat a close friend or relative that you care about, would you change what you're doing? If the answer is yes, you might want to think about that, because if the answer is oh yes and you would enjoy it, that means that you're probably not treating yourself well enough. And if the answer is yes and you wouldn't enjoy it, then there's a chance that you might need to rethink how you treat the people around you. Now, that's not necessarily true because people, enjoy their own personal whatnots. So if, like, you're not someone who likes to be, doted over a lot, but you have people around you that really enjoy that, then there might be some differences. But if the reason that you dote over them is because you know that they enjoy that, it would be like, okay, so do the same kind of thing that would be the equivalent for you. You don't have to, like, do it action for action, but if there's someone who it's like, oh, I'm going to do this for this person because I know that they enjoy doing this, then it'd be like, awesome, then do that. And then if it also comes down to, well, I wouldn't, call this person out for doing this kind of thing, even though I would call myself out for it, then you should do the same analogy. You're either treating the people around you way too gently and that's bad for them. So if you actually cared about them, you would tell them the problems that they're facing, even if it's an uncomfortable conversation, because it's better for them in the long run if you call them out on the things that are going to come back and bite them in the butt. Or you are being uh too harsh on yourself. So you might be being overcritical about yourself on the situation. If you're pretty reasonable about that and you have amicable relationships with the people around you, that part's important, then you should be reasonably fine. But there's a few other things you can do on it, which is like, don't be a tyrant to yourself, right? So it's like, don't force yourself into a situation because you have to do the thing. You should negotiate with yourself rather than like being a tyrannical ruler. So, one of the ideas behind this would be something along the lines of, you have chores and the chores need to get done. So, how are you going to get the chores done? And if the answer is, well, I'm just going to do it even though I don't want to, and I'm going to continue to do these hard things even though I don't want to, and it's like, okay, that's not the worst idea. But if it's like, I'm going to continue to do that on and on and on and on and on, then you're not in a sustainable setup. That's a bad idea. Because then you're going to, if you fail the thing and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have failed this, and you punish yourself for it, then you're just going to get into a rough structure that is not helpful for you. A better approach would probably be something along the lines of, well, I have to do this thing because, it's the thing that needs to get done. What would motivate me to do this thing? And then you go through and you set up the motivation. And you're like, okay, so then this is the thing that I'm going for because I get a reward at the end of it. Now, what happens to me if I don't get it done? And if both ends of the thing are fair, then you're doing it right because then you have proper thing to run from and you have proper thing to run to, and that gives you a good motivation, line of direction, all the things, and it also makes it so that it is healthier and more sustainable for you to continue with, which is important. The reason that it's important is because you can only sustain so much burnout, right? So if you burn yourself out too many times, you're not going to have anything left to burn. And that's not a sustainable way to live through life. So assuming that you want to live a long and prosperous life where you actually get things done and you can actually continue to get things done in the future and everything isn't just a ridiculous slog fest, then you should work with yourself on it. Anyway, if you want to understand the general idea in a game theory sense, I highly recommend you just looking up infinite game theory problem on YouTube, right? So there's an idea in games where there's like a best strategy that you can do in any given scenario kind of thing for any fixed game. Okay? So any fixed game that isn't a perfect game, then there's a best strategy. So rock, paper, scissors would be a wonderful example of this. There's only a certain boundary of what can be done. The rules are very clear, and you also don't know what your opponent is going to do. Wonderful. So there's knowledge that isn't given to you, and it also has boundaries that it stays within. Great. You can basically look up infinite game theory problem. So it tells you what the best ideal setup would be. Well, no. Oh, it's Infinite Prisoner's Dilemma. My bad. So it's called Infinite Prisoner's Dilemma. Okay? Look it up on YouTube. It tells you the general idea of what I'm talking about. What you want to do is you want to be fair to yourself, amicable, and not force yourself into situations that aren't fair. Because the general setup is if you're forcing yourself into situations that aren't fair, you will build resentment. What are you going to build resentment towards? I don't know. But resentment doesn't tend to get people in good places. So, if you care about not being there, I recommend negotiating with yourself and working with yourself. Because you're going to be with yourself for a long time. And if you try to live life not being with yourself, that is like okay, like you do you, but bro, that just sounds dismal. Anyway, that's all the things that I was going to talk about. That's basically, it's just a little bit of a short ramble. Not really. TLDR, treat yourself well. set yourself up so that you have adequate thing to like adequate punishment for not doing your stuff and adequate reward for actually doing it. And if you treat yourself how you treat the people around you, it tells you a lot about yourself. And it tells you a lot about yourself how you treat people and how you enjoy being treated. Yeah, that's the general setup. So, yeah.